This episode is sponsored by Kerkering Barberio, your trusted partner in tax, audit, and outsourced accounting services. Serving Sarasota, Manatee, and the greater Tampa Bay area for over 50 years, KB helps clients achieve their personal and business goals. Visit kbgrp.com to learn more. Sam Guerrieri is in one of the most competitive businesses on the west coast of Florida: financial services, banking, and wealth management. The Business Observer writes regularly about these industries, the trends, the key players, and important deals. To read the Business Observer regularly, subscribe now. Go to businessobserverfl.com to subscribe. Hello and welcome to the Business Observer from the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Sam Guerrieri, Executive Vice President of Canandaigua National Bank and Trust. Sam, welcome and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I say the name Canandaigua National Bank and Trust, and some people are going to know that in Florida, but a lot of others aren't. So we're gonna get into your career in a second. Before we do that, tell us what is Canandaigua National Bank and Trust?
Canandaigua National Bank and Trust is a community bank here in upstate New York with 26 bank branch offices. We have about $5 billion in assets under management, about 120,000 customers. We have about a little over 12,000 business customers and about 5,000 wealth accounts. As I mentioned, we have $5 billion in assets as a bank, but we also have $5 billion in assets under management, which is part of our wealth management business. And Sarasota is our office in Sarasota is an extension of our footprint.
So you guys are based in central upstate New York, but presence in Sarasota.
That's correct.
All right. We're going to get into that a little bit more. We're going to get into your career, but I want the audience to get to know you a little bit. So we are going to hit you with some rapid fire questions right off the bat here. Okay. How many hours of sleep do you need a night so you're not cranky the next day?
How about, I'd say about 4.
4? You can run on 4. I like it. Energy.
I can run on 4. Yeah, I'm an early riser. I'll do some reading before I go to bed, but then I'm up and at 'em pretty early in the morning, like 5 o'clock. It's really important for me to get off to a good start. I usually hit the gym, be in the gym by like 5:30, and then that allows me to get into the office sometime around 8 o'clock.
The next question I was going to ask you is when you're at your best, what is your morning routine when Sam's at his best?
Yeah, roll right out of bed, get in my car, and go right to the gym without pause, because you skip that step and it can get off the rails pretty quickly. So
you don't check the phone, check the emails, check the text, whatever. You go right to the gym.
Check it before I go to bed. Usually there's not too much going on between the time I go to bed and when I get up. So I might check it at I'm guilty about this. I might check it at a stoplight on my way to the gym, but nothing too in-depth until I'm finished with the workout, and then I get right into it.
Well, there's not that many cars on the road in greater Rochester at 5:15 a.m., I'm sure. No,
and it's cold this time of year. So.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
All right, last rapid-fire question. What is the longest plane ride you have ever been on to where?
Yeah, so my family and I flew out to Australia to visit my daughter, who was studying abroad her junior year in college. And the flight from LA to Australia is something like 15 hours. And it's quite a ways. It's quite a distance.
Yes.
It was fun though.
Yeah, obviously that's a great trip. All right, so we're going to get into your career. We're going to talk about Florida and the Florida market in a second. Tell us a little bit about your career first. How did you and why did you get into banking and financial services?
Yeah, this industry has always been of interest to me. I've been fascinated by it since I was a kid. My father, at a young age, always taught us the discipline of of setting goals for yourself financially, being financially independent. So for me, it was kind of easy because it allowed me to continue not only for myself but helping other people achieve financial independence, which is an important thing for me. Helping people set goals, constructing a disciplined plan, and then sticking with that plan. But the interesting thing is, my career has evolved. It became less about dealing with clients and more about dealing with people, because in a management type of role, leadership type role, I got away from the management of people's portfolios and their financial planning, and now I'm managing and leading people that are doing that for clients. So it's a tremendous business, fascinating business. It can change people's lives. I've also had about 3 years ago, Frank Hamlin, who's the CEO and president of the bank, asked me to take on marketing, product management, community engagement, in addition to wealth management, which for me is a awesome challenge. I always like the idea of being able to lead businesses both within my kind of area of expertise and then outside my area of expertise. There's just so much to learn, and as long as I can learn and help the bank,
You're
it's a
good.
good day for me.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And so take us through the history of, you guys obviously have a presence in New York, but like so many other banks, New York, Midwest, whatever it is, they want in on the Florida market, obviously from a population standpoint, demographics. What's sort of the history of Canandaigua coming into Florida and the Sarasota market?
Yeah, I would say that back in 2008, 2009 timeframe, we decided it was a good thing for us to get into the Sarasota market. Many of our, as you could imagine, many of our clients and customers either visit or
Sure.
are living in the Sarasota market. So for us, it's a natural progression, especially when you have the ability to offer trust powers. So we opened the office in 2009. We were able to get trust powers soon after that. And I would say that if we have a special sauce down in our Sarasota market, it's really the trust services that we provide. You may know that there are a lot of benefits to having a trust in Florida. Even so, we offer a full array of wealth management services like investment management and financial planning. The trust services is what really sets us apart. And I think that that has been really the hallmark of our success down there, and we're pretty excited about the potential growth opportunity that it presents.
Yeah, I mean, tell us about how you've grown over the, I guess, 15 years or so. I know your office has recently moved, and as you said, there's a lot of Rochesterians roaming around Sarasota, but I'm sure you obviously have clients outside of those. But how has the Florida market grown for you guys in the last decade or so?
Yeah, so when we started back in 2009, in the early days, about 85% of our clients that were in the Sarasota office came from upstate New York. And I think over time, what we've seen is a flip. We're now seeing more than 75% of our new business coming from the Florida market. So that's a huge signal of success for us. It really is. And if you think about our business, I mentioned that we have $5 billion in assets under management as a wealth management business. We have about $620 million managed in Florida. So that's about 12%, a little over 12% of our total book of business now. And it also represents about 11% of our revenue. So Florida is becoming a very important part of our business now. And when you've seen, I think since 2013 we've seen about 17.5% growth per year, our growth rate in assets. And it's just a testament of being in the market and demonstrating that niche that we talked about of the trust powers.
Yeah. What was it like when you first moved here? Did you have people, hey, I want to go move to Florida? What was that like for the bank?
I wish we had more people that want to move to Florida. Actually, especially now that we have the new office, we're really excited about the expansion there. And having some extra offices there allows some of our folks that support the Sarasota market to get down there throughout the year. But I'm waiting for some people to raise their hand.
Yes.
I might be the first one.
All right. Well, come on down. Come on down. We'll do it. All right. So we're gonna go back. You've had a career in banking. Obviously, you talked a little bit about your mentor earlier, and that you like to learn something new within your job. You've also hired leaders at the bank. Tell us about that side of your career. What do you look for in good leaders? Whether you're even hiring somebody, promoting somebody, working with somebody, what stands out to you as good leadership characteristics?
Yeah, this is really something I've spent a lot of time on over the course of my career, is really understanding the difference between leadership and management.
Yeah.
And there is a big difference between the two. I think for a leader, some of the characteristics I look for is, first of all, someone that is interested in being an architect for the future, as opposed to embracing the status quo, right? A leader needs to be able to zoom in and zoom out at the appropriate times. And leaders also need to find the capacity, meaning the time, to set aside to do the research, to understand the data, and to set a direction. And once they set that direction, then it's about aligning the right people, and motivating the right people towards a common goal, and holding people accountable. And oftentimes I call it working on the business, as opposed to working in the
In the
business.
business. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really makes a big difference, because I mentioned the word capacity. I think the hardest thing for leaders is to find the capacity, the time to be able to do the work, to set the vision and set the goals, because there's so oftentimes you're pulled into the business and you can't zoom out.
Yeah.
So I look for people that have that discipline. Yeah, from time to time you can do that.
It's interesting you say that. I bring it to me personally. We have this, the Business Observer has this big issue every summer, late summer, called the Big Book of Business. And you've probably seen this. Rochester Business Journal, I'm sure, does similar thing. It's like a book of lists, but ours is better, obviously. But it's a little different. But I'm in my planning process for it now, and I keep writing on my to-do list every day to work on it, because that's like working on it, right? Working on the business. But then stuff happens and I'm in it every day, and I have not taken the time that I need to do this like strategy session. Do you struggle, or how do you do that as a leader of the bank? How do you discipline yourself to work on, not in?
Yeah, it was something that was very difficult, because throughout my career, at the last bank I worked at, I would say that I worked in the business most of the time.
Yeah.
You worked in the business because you were required to know every single detail of things that were going on in the business. And when I came here, I was given this opportunity to run this part of the business, and I realized that we had really talented people here, and I didn't want to start to crowd them with my thoughts and ideas right from the start. So what I did was I just had this discipline about setting aside time each week to just work on the business. And it's really worked out great for me. And what it's also done for me as a leader, it's allowing my people to do what they do best.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing the work for them.
Yeah.
So I think that all in all, it's a great discipline to have. But you really need to set aside the time.
Yeah, you have to work at it for sure. Sam, who are some of your mentors in your career, and what have you learned from them?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was thinking, when I think about mentors, I could rattle off a bunch of names. I must have at least 100 mentors. The way this has been throughout my life is I've looked for traits or attributes in that I admire in other people, and I'll do my best to try to emulate those traits and attributes. So, the typical mentors like parents and teachers and coaches and bosses, of course, right? But I also admire traits and attributes like in my children, my coworkers, the next generation down, right? And it's really that's helped me and has inspired me to be a better father, a better husband, a better brother, uncle, friend, a better worker, right? A better employee.
Yeah.
And so I limit my mentors to just, 3 or 4 people. It's really about the attributes and the traits that I admire and I
Yeah,
try to emulate.
that's interesting. You sort of take your ego out of it, right? Where you might learn something from not just a banker, but somebody who's technically lower than you on the hierarchy of your company.
Yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
ever heard of reverse mentoring, right? That's a tremendous thing.
Yeah.
One of the things I enjoy in my career at this stage of the game is that I do mentor a lot of high potential people,
Yeah.
that next generation of leaders. And I love to do that. I set aside time each week to do that. But I also look at that as an opportunity for me to learn from them.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. And the other thing I'd mention, Mark, that I've tried to do on an annual basis is I try to make it a point to identify like 3 to 5 of my mentors that have had some impact on my life in that year, and either meet with them in person or call them and let them know the
Yeah.
impact that they've had on my career. It's so fulfilling to do that, both for
Yeah.
them and for me. It's
Yeah.
oftentimes we forget.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. So important. Another side of leadership, is resilience, right? That word is like thrown around a lot, but it's so important. And I'm curious how you, as a leader, mentored people or yourself personally have had to overcome some obstacles or setbacks, whether it's, not getting a deal that you wanted, a client that you wanted, or, something else just doesn't go your way. It's going to happen. As a leader, how have you built that sort of skill set and overcome those?
Yeah, I think that resilience is definitely one of those on the list, right? I mean, it's about, sometimes you have to practice patience over being too persistent and or impatient. There's a huge balance between. I think success depends a lot on a balance between patience and impatience,
Yeah.
and just making sure that you're doing everything you can to understand what you can control and what you can't control. And sometimes it's just not the right time, and it requires you to kind of step back. One thing, as long as we're on this topic of leadership, one thing I subscribe to. It sounds kind of I don't know, a little interesting. I call it the emotional change curve. And
Okay.
this is, anytime you go through some change, there's that immediate impact of change that people look at as negative,
Yeah.
right? So their emotions go down. They're fearful that they're going to lose their job. Something bad's going to happen. They're going to replace me, what have you. And then there's that point in time where they start to see, and you start to see the benefits of that change, and they start to come back up the curve. I
Yeah.
think for me as a leader, one of the things that I try to understand is where everybody is on that curve, because everyone handles change differently.
Yeah.
And you as the leader are almost always ahead of that curve.
Yeah.
You're always at the head of that side
Right.
of it.
Because you're aware. Yeah. Right.
So it's so important that you stop and you communicate the why, and you celebrate the little wins, and you just keep reminding people that you're on the right track, and I think that's a really important part of resilience and,
Yeah.
kind of moving things forward.
What did you call
Also,
that
I'll
again?
just
That was
say,
the. Go ahead.
well, yeah, just one other point on that is I'm a big proponent of progress over perfection.
Progress over perfection.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of that. Every now and again, people will wait until it's absolutely perfect before they want to move forward, and oftentimes it'll never be perfect, right? So I subscribe to kind of this notion that if it's 70 or 80% there, let's move forward, and then we can tweak it along the way as we learn, and we understand the situation. Back to your question, I call it the emotional change curve.
The emotional change curve. I like that. I like that. And then progress over perfection. You and I met for the first time at a Buffalo Bills watch party in Sarasota. And that's a good analogy, right? Because the Bills are like process. They're almost there, right? Like every year we're like this close.
That's exactly right. Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. You have to admire their resilience.
That's it. You got to keep coming back next season. So maybe the next Buffalo Bills watch party will be a Super Bowl.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yes.
Go Bills.
Absolutely. All right, Sam. So one last question, as we are, in early March recording this, talk a little bit about the Florida market. What can we expect from Canandaigua National Bank and Trust in Florida the rest of the year and beyond? What are some things we could look forward to?
Yeah, it's an exciting time for us. And you mentioned, Mark, the Buffalo Bills watch party. We have focused quite a bit on developing business in the Sarasota market. And I think that one of our greatest opportunities is how do we do a better job connecting those with those people that are from upstate and Western New York that live or visit Sarasota?
Yeah.
And how can we do more things like the Buffalo Bills watch party, right? Where you get people from upstate New York that love the Buffalo Bills and they're in Sarasota. Everybody has a common thing. It was a great
Yes,
party.
it was.
I think what you're going to see is our business development will start to focus more on those types of things and really leveraging the community, if you will, that
Yeah.
resides in Sarasota, that's from upstate New York, that might have a more familiarity with us
Yes.
and what we can do. And then, in addition to that, continuing to grow our relationships that we currently have. And for the trust and wealth management business, it's so much about getting to know the next generation, getting to know the families of our clients. And that's a process. It takes a long time to do that. So we do all we can in the early stages of our planning process to bring the families in so that they can, at least understand our process and understand the program that their families are going through and what the expectations are. So I think, what I'm calling it, Mark, it's not going to happen I don't think it's going to happen in 2025. But my goal is I call it the road to $1 billion. We're currently at $620 million in assets under management in Florida. I want to get to $1 billion. And to do that, we have to do some of these things that we were just talking about.
All right. Well, big, bold goals. I like it. Sam Guerrieri, Executive Vice President, Canandaigua National Bank and Trust. Thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordon. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.